Good afternoon and welcome to United TV. Lots of things to discuss. There's been quite a bit of news regarding potentially Manchester United's top targets. There won't be surprises there, but it might be an indication of that Manchester United have got their heart set on one or two players, and maybe they need to act now if they want to actually get one of these top signings. So we're going to go through that. This will be a debate, so people can post comments. Let me know what you think regarding the best options available. Also, before we go into it, I've got a bit of information to share regarding this one, and also Yali, big up to you. I have got the Bruno story as well, which could be good, could be bad. So it's a decent source, but we will talk about the Bruno Fernandes situation as well. But FIFA are having a meeting and they're looking at a directive to try and change some of the rules regarding homegrown players. You're looking at under 20, under 21 category players. And the rule here is going to be potentially, this is the rule, you're going to have an academy player on the pitch at all times, which would be a massive change from what seems to have been over the last few years a financial incentive to actually sell academy players to get profit to bankroll other transfer fees. So the rules regarding football financial situations for Premier League clubs the last few years is pretty much incentivise clubs to sell academy players to make a profit. So I don't know whether FIFA are now thinking that this has actually gone too far and they're trying to bring in something, some way of curbing this and some way of completely reversing it. But it would mean, I don't know how quickly this would come in, but it would mean a significant problem for quite a few clubs. So as example, if you had to have an academy player on the pitch for every minute of the game this season, there's not a single Premier League club that would have done that. So we've got a picture of Mania there. Clearly, this probably benefits the same clubs in the long run. So the clubs that benefit from selling academy players for profit are probably also going to be the clubs that bring through good academy players. So they would be able to still have good players in their team. So I don't know. I don't know what they're expecting to achieve by changing the rules. But I think it's a good thing not to incentivize clubs to try and sell every younger player, and it's good to get them developed. But sometimes, what happens if Manchester United have got players like Rio Ferdinand and Vidic in their prime, and you bring through an elite, top quality centre back that essentially can't. So I think there's that. I can see situations where it's a good idea, and I can also see situations where you're almost forced to play some players because they're for your academy. But again, I don't know what they're hoping to achieve because if you bring through good academy players under the current rules, you benefit by selling them, and then the same clubs will also benefit by having good players on the pitch. So this is something I thought I'd mention because it is potentially going to be a rule in the future, and I guess any sort of big rule change is going to be, I suppose, interesting to discuss. So I think on the face of it, it sounds like a good thing because I don't think clubs should be incentivized to sell players. But again, you'd have to see how it's implemented. I do think what would happen then is we'd probably see teams actually start looking at players they can buy for their academy. So it would change things. But I guess players that go through the academy then fit into the first team. I think from Manchester United fans' point of view, players like TCHOUAMENI, you come through the academy, you break into the first team, and I think most Manchester United fans are happy if you get academy players in the team. But the fact we've had this record going back for over 80 years, we've always had an academy player in the matchday squad. I think this is for United fans. This is just a bit of an extension of that rule, and it would be it would be good that definitely actually happens as well. Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. We'll look at this one. So we could do the Bruno story very quickly, and then we'll look at the midfield stories. But just because this is kind of breaking news as well, is that if you're thinking about Bruno Fernandes, his situation at Manchester United, and Bruno Fernandes' level of motivation, I would say this is very similar to Wayne Rooney when Rooney went into Alex Ferguson's office and said, "Look, he's a top player. Rooney was Manchester United's best player at the time. He wants assurances if he's gonna be tying down the last big contract of his career. If Bruno Fernandes is effectively going to end his career at Manchester United by staying, he wants assurances that Manchester United match his ambition. He wants to win the Premier League, he wants to win the Champions League, or he wants to at least play for a team that's capable of challenging for those trophies. And Wayne Rooney had the same issue. Wayne Rooney had won the Champions League, he'd won multiple Premier League titles. He wanted assurances that if he was going to dedicate the rest of his career to Manchester United, he wanted to make sure that there was going to be good players around him to try and achieve what he wanted to do. So this for me feels exactly like Bruno Fernandes. This feels exactly like Wayne Rooney. when Rooney had that conversation, and it feels a little bit like other players in the past that have. Again, it's interesting to see this story come out because it makes a lot of sense. I think Bruno Fernandes has been Manchester United's best performer player this season. What do Manchester United like? I think obviously Bruno Fernandes can't change their transfer strategy. I would suggest that clearly United seem to be looking in the right direction, and some of the players we're linked to that we'd be getting in do seem to be a significant improvement. The question, I suppose, is going to be how much assurance can you give Bruno Fernandes when you've got a team like Manchester City in your league? It's quite like what assurances can they give him? I don't know. Clearly, Bruno Fernandes wants to win, which is great, but I just don't know whether what Manchester United are going to do to actually convince him. Or if he wants to leave, he's going to leave. If he wants to stay, I think he gets a new contract, probably slight pay rise, but he will get a pay rise for Champions League football. So looking at this, like Bilal says, promoting our youth is part of our DNA. I think if you're looking at, so I'll go through a few of the comments. If you've got some comments on the things I've been discussing, the FIFA directive, the Bruno Fernandes, and then we'll jump into midfield conversations because there's going to be quite a lot of that to talk about as well. So what could we sell Bruno Fernandes for? I think Bruno Fernandes has got a release clause of about 57 million if you're talking about Bruno Fernandes. So that's probably the situation. Regarding Bawadi, he's pretty young, decent at the moment, but if you're going to sign Bawadi, then you'd have to say how much is he going to be getting into our team in the next season. Like, there's no doubt he's a good player. Would it be if United go for some of the players we're linked to and that we'll discuss today? Would that be a target? So I think with Buadi, if you got the first team already sorted out, I think it makes a lot of sense as well. Ryan says, I agree with Bilal. Promoting youth is what we're all about. We don't need a rule to encourage it, though. Others may. So just to go to that story for people that just tuned in, this is a FIFA directive about having to have one academy player not just in your matchday squad like we've always done, but you've got to have one academy player on the pitch every minute of every game in the Premier League. And actually, I guess this is all competitions, is it? So this would be this would mean that you probably actually have to. The difficulty would be, what if you got a few but they get injured? So I think there's got to be. I think it's got to be one of these things where you can't you can't keep five academy players just in case one gets injured. So you'd have to be sensible about it. So I think it does make a lot of sense and maybe they need to look at how they implement this to make it actually work. So I think with Manchester United, we don't really need any encouragement. I think most of the fans and most of us watching have hope that we can bring academy players through and hope that academy players are part of the team. So I think this is probably something that maybe changes the way certain clubs operate, and it might change the sort of cashing in approach that some clubs have done, which I'm not really. I don't know, if Manchester United sell an academy player because he doesn't work out, that's one thing. If we get an academy player that comes through that's brilliant, I think we'd be massively disappointed if he didn't feature in the first team. So the Kobe situation is an example, I think, where first team academy player comes through, and we see a lot of positives about him. So we're going to be going through the midfield situation, and there's a few stories to talk about today. So we'll move on to midfield targets. So there's going to be a few conversations about this one as well. And Bilal said regarding assurances for players, yeah, I think to be honest, if Bruno wants assurances, I think it's very difficult as a club to say, look, we can't control. No, if you want to win the Champions League, we can't control what Bayern Munich do, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Barcelona. There's a lot of top teams out there. And then if you look in the Premier League, we can't control what Arsenal, Manchester City, Liverpool do. But if Manchester United can get themselves in the conversation where they've got a genuine chance of winning the trophies in the next couple, like say next year to 2 years, at least domestic cup should be achievable next season. And if you look at trying to win the Premier League or the Champions League, then clearly the transfers we're talking about might be one step in the right direction. Like we've got to be looking at trying to sign better quality players and make sure we get some of our targets landed. So with that in mind, in terms of like midfield targets, so this has been the last hour being reported that Elliot Anderson, not of Nottingham Forest, Tchouaméni, they're still top of the shortlist for the sixth position. I'd argue that they can at least Anderson can be more versatile than that one, but these are top of the list in terms of what Manchester United want. Too many feels very difficult to achieve, but potentially you could maybe you could get this deal done if he forces his way out of the club. That's the difficulty. So if you're looking at three players, Manchester United feel like Anderson, assuming that Rodri goes and assuming that Manchester City look at Anderson as going to be their top target, which I think we think that, and there is Fernandes as well, but you'd imagine that Anderson's happy to go. So that feels a bit like it's off the table. I would say the too many one feels like it might drag on a lot. The question really is going to be that how long should Manchester United wait? Should we wait around to find out what happens with Anderson? Like we're kind of in the loop a little bit, but we're going to probably find out that he's just gone, and I don't think Manchester United can really influence that too much. Are we going to wait around, find out if Tchouameni actually signs an extension, whether he leaves, or are we going to go a bit heavier and go for someone like Tonali? So there's stories being put out there that there is interest in Tonali from Juventus, but the problem is going to be, I mean, I've read stories as well saying that Tonali maybe favours a move back to Italy, which might be the case. Which might be the case. I'll just say, Yali, I hope you're wrong, but you actually never know. You never know what's going to happen to you. It could be the end of an era. We don't know yet. And cheers, Rob. So regarding this, Manchester United are leading the race if they choose to pursue Tonali. The other team that's significantly interested does seem to be Juventus. Interestingly, regarding Manchester United leading the race for Juventus target Tonali, this has been put out by sources close to Italian media and Juventus. So I think this is in a Juventus-based newspaper. They're saying that they're interested, but they feel like Manchester United are winning the race, and it's also felt by Juventus that they can't actually financially compete with Manchester United. And again, this is it might be that Tonali favours a move to Juve over Manchester United, but he might not have any options. Like if the valuation is going to be 100 million, I think Manchester United, like we're talking about 100 million euros. So if you look at it in terms of pounds, maybe looking close to like 85-ish million, 87 million. If you're looking at that sort of figure, then Juventus can't afford to pay that sort of money. Manchester United can. So I think if he leaves Newcastle this summer, based on that valuation, and I don't see the valuation softening too much, like certainly not enough to make Juventus a favourite, then I think this is probably, of those three targets, if you're looking for those three targets, I think Tonali ends up becoming possibly the most likely if they're looking at that one. So it seems like it's a lot of money, but if you're looking at the price comparison, so 87 million for Tonali. If we go to the other targets, you're probably talking more for Anderson based on Forest's valuation. You're probably talking a little bit cheaper for Tchouameni, although it's thought about £70 million for Tchouameni might be achievable. But overall package, Tchouameni's salary would be more than Tonali's. I would imagine that he's already getting paid quite a lot more at Real Madrid than Tonali is at Newcastle. So overall package, Tonali and Tchouameni probably going to cost about the same. I think Anderson might actually, if you consider it, Anderson might actually not cost as much as someone like Tchouameni. If his salary is going to be £100,000 a week cheaper, I would say Anderson's going to cost you £5 million less per year in salary. So over a 5-year deal, 25 million. If Tchouameni costs 70 million and Anderson costs 100 million, Anderson is a little bit cheaper, so a little bit more expensive over 5 years. But you're talking about like 5 million difference possibly. So it might be closer than you think. So I'm guessing transfer wise, Tchouameni is actually the cheapest, but when you actually factor in salaries, they're probably all about the similar sort of price. I'd imagine that Tonali would be a slightly higher contract than Anderson, but again, be slightly cheaper. So again, it's kind of forget the sort of transfer price. They're kind of all about similar sort of money, so they're all quite close. As Gregory said, yeah. So yeah, I said like so 85, 87 million. So about that sort of money, roughly for Tonali. I mean, 100 million sounds a lot of money, but if you're looking at Tchouameni possibly costing 80 million euros, but with a 50% higher salary at least, and you're looking at the other option of possibly getting Anderson, who would probably be on a lower salary because he's again younger, but the transfer fee would be a bit more. So I think a lot of people just focus on how much these players are going to cost, but when you factor in the salaries and other sort of other sort of things you're going to have to deal with, incentives, potential bonuses. I would imagine that they're all going to cost roughly the same. So it's pretty much the same. The question is going to be Manchester United feel like they need experience. They feel like they need some leadership in the team. What's the most achievable one? Like, does anybody see one of these players joining Manchester United in the summer? That when you're looking at it, Anderson and Tchouaméni, they feel like they're top of the shortlist, but I think they're the least likely signings. Let's say actually no, maybe too many. I'm not sure on. It honestly depends on if he wants to leave. But Anderson, it feels like that ship sailed. It feels like the situation with Anderson feels exactly like it did with Mark Gahey and Semenyo as soon as Manchester City got interested. So I think at the moment, United are leading the race for Tonali. It's a question mark of whether they wait for Tonali or whether they just go for it because they want to get one of these deals done. So Wizard Better says you like Tonali, but don't trust Tonali not to be disruptive. I suppose, like with too many, if too many, has he got the same potential issue? It is kind of tricky, isn't it? Because there's arguments to get a quality player in like Tonali. There's arguments for trying to get too many as the best option. The problem I think we've got is how long do you wait before you make a decision? And if you wait a long time to make a decision, are you going to end up with less choice? And other teams are not going to be sat around waiting for Man United to make a decision. Too many isn't really sat. Too many's got an option to decide. I think United need to actually make a decision quite quickly. So it is tricky. But what would you do if you got these? You've probably got four options. One is going to be, I suppose, hold out for Anderson, Tonali, possibly, or maybe look at another player, maybe look at different options that are non-Premier League. The question is going to be: is there somebody that has got that sort of like a combination of Premier League experience, international experience, or European experience, but also going to be good enough to join Manchester United's midfield? I think when you look at it, it's quite a difficult one. That when we talk about options that are going to be a bit cheaper, there's loads of players that we can get in, like a lot of options. I think for whatever reason is like United might be looking at Hackney, they might be looking at Gomez. I think Baleba's going to be one as well. I think the one is that I'm kind of thinking like too many so good is too many worth holding out for. To looking at this one saying, but too many is you think too many is a model professional? I would not believe it if we signed him. Real Madrid really willing to let him go? I think it's a difficult one. I think Real Madrid don't want to let him go. It's all down to too many, really, isn't it? And there's too many just playing hardball, trying to get the best possible contract. So we know that Real Madrid is a different situation as well. Is too many genuinely going to want to leave Real Madrid, come to Manchester United? Like, is the Bruno Fernandes situation as well going to be another factor? Like, to go to that other story, if Bruno Fernandes is considering an exit, then what happens first? Like, because for United, really, they need to get that. If they want to get too many, and they want to get some other midfielders in that are effectively buying into Manchester United's rebuild, then I think the first part of business might be the Bruno Fernandes situation to resolve because it's difficult because how do you get Bruno Fernandes to extend his contract without getting in the top quality midfielders? How do you get the top quality midfielders to come in if they think that Bruno Fernandes might leave? So I think that they've got a difficult situation. Clearly, like the Maguire extension and Koemanu contract are relatively straightforward in comparison. The Bruno Fernandes one might be a tricky one. How is it less expensive to acquire too many than Tonali or Anderson, says Gregory. I said it was roughly the same price. I said it was pretty similar. If you're looking at the transfer fee for too many, it's lower, but too many's on a higher salary. So it's it's a tricky one, isn't it? So too many is 26, contracted till 2029. Yeah, it's in Madrid's hands. I think Madrid are kind of thinking that it's going to be they don't want too many starting to run his contract down a little bit. I think that's the situation that it depends. If Real Madrid are looking at, I think Real Madrid want to move on Camavinga and they want to replace Camavinga with Rodri. I think maybe too many is feeling that Rodri's going to come and take his place, and he's going to play in a position he's not so keen on. So it's quite tricky, isn't it? That I think too many. That clearly he's a player in his prime, isn't he? So he's a few years younger than Casemiro was when we bought Casemiro, and too many would feel like the best signing we could make. But it's going to be a bit tricky because yeah, Real Madrid have got some power. Effectively, too many's got a lot of power as well. So it's really tricky to decide. Yolis says, yeah, if Bruno Fernandes leaves, it's it's genuinely going to be. I don't know, it's going to be difficult to see how Manchester United rebuilds in one window. But this is the. I think it's going to be. Like if you're looking at Bruno Fernandes has got the creative force of our team, and you can see how well he's linking up with the attacking players. And it feels like if we fix the defensive part of our midfield, or the 6 and 8 kind of positions in our midfield, and then if Bruno Fernandes left, it would be a bit frustrating that we'd kind of then be fixing a different part of our team. So if we fix one part of our team, but then we lose someone like Bruno, it's going to be tricky. Um, so Bruno is going nowhere, says Mark. Yeah, so I'm kind of 50-50. I get the feeling that Bruno loves Manchester United and wants to stay with Manchester United. Yeah, it's just tricky regarding this one. So you were told that the transfer fees would be 20 euros, sorry, 20 million euros less for too many than Anderson or Tonali. I think they would be. Like Gregory, if you're talking just about how much transfer fee you have to pay, then the cost you'd have to pay for the transfer fee would be lower for too many. They've said 80 million euros. Newcastle have said they want 100 million euros for Tonali, but too many is going to get paid probably 50% more. So the overall package will be the same, but the fee for the transfer will be less. Like the salary will be more. That's the difference. So it's the overall cost to Manchester United very similar, but amount of money going to Juventus, so amount of money going to Newcastle would be higher than the amount of money going to Real Madrid. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, if we get too many, we've got another centre back option, which is true. And welcome, sorry to the chat. It says why we're not going for both of them. I think maybe it could be that it could be price. I do agree that these players are not exactly the same players either. And I would be looking at if I was going to look at some of our targets. So we've been talking about Tonali, but I think if you're looking at when it says Manchester United are looking at Anderson for the sixth position, I think Anderson's more versatile than that as well. Because it's like we could have a conversation and say Manchester United are looking at Tchouaméni because he can play centre back or six, whereas with Anderson you can play in several different positions in midfield. So it's not a case of like Anderson plus Tchouaméni can work in the same team. And I think too many plus Mane would be a good fit. I think Anderson probably maybe like Baleba would be a good fit alongside Cody Mane. So there's good options. And I guess with like it depends also if you got Tonali or you got Anderson, you might just see different from what Mane does on the pitch. So again, I think it's like you have a different way of playing depending on which players you got on the pitch. Ideally, I think we'd need three midfielders, but I think when we're looking at this, I think we're having this conclusion, I think, that most people are looking at it thinking that possibly you're only going to be able to spend spend big on one player. But I don't think we're going to spend incredible money on a lot every single player. Saying that too many plus Tonali would work. That it could, but how expensive is that going to be? Would be my question. That how much money is it going to cost? If United can buy too many, I think that's going to be put down as like a flagship signing and a very expensive signing. I don't think Manchester United they're going to have a lot of capacity to do another deal that's going to be that sort of price. So I think it'd be nice to no, it'd be great to be sat here and go, let's get too many Tonali and Anderson. But I think the reality of any sort of situation is going to be that Manchester United will look at this as going to be so it's almost a bit like countdown. You can have one big number that's going to be £100 million or so 100 million euros. You're going to have to pick one of those, and then around that, as part of a comprehensive midfield rebuild, I think you can pick like maybe three or maybe two or three other players, like two more midfielders. Let's say, yeah, if we're looking for an attacking midfielder winger to eventually replace Bruno, Morgan Rogers is a good option. Like, he is a good option. I mean, his goal scoring rate, was it 1 in 4 games? Is okay. I mean, Rashford was 1 in 3, so it's not bad from Rogers. But you'd hope he's young, so Rogers hopefully improves as well if he does join Man United. Diamondo would be another option. The only issue with that one is Rogers is priced at about £100 million from Aston, so €100 million, I think, or £100 million, so very high. So if you're looking at £100 million for Rodgers, then I think Manchester United have been kind of looking a bit at Rafael Leao because he's half the price. But I would be really hoping we don't go for Leao based on what I've seen recently. And Diamonde is the other guy. Diamonde is £85 million, €100 million as Leipzig's valuation, and he's only played, like, this is his first season in like first team football. So we're looking at incredible expense though, aren't we? So if we bought Tonali, then I think what we have to do is go, right, now we need to look at Joe Gomez, look at Hayden Hackney, potentially Alex Scott, potentially Angela Stiller. So effectively, you pick two more signings that are going to be a lot cheaper. So there are a couple of deals where I quite like Rogers. I think I like the way, like, Rogers is a good finisher. He's got a good shot. He's definitely going to develop. He's definitely at that sort of age, like 23 years old, which I think is going to be a good option, but I think he's too expensive. Like, it's really difficult. So, and I think Yildiz is the other player that's a Juventus player that people look at as possibly trying to replace Bruno Fernandes, but they want 100 million. So that we can't be linked to all these players that cost 100 million, like Yildiz and Rogers, and think we're and Diamonde. That they're unrealistic, aren't they? And they're probably too expensive. Do you remember when Tyler Devlin was supposed to be 100 million? So these players shouldn't go for that sort of money. But at the moment, clubs are putting really high valuations on them. Yardi says that sounds like three-quarters of our transfer budget, though. So I think if you're looking at it, three midfielders, but two of them are going to be half the price of Tonali. Like, if you get Tonali, if you get too many, they're going to be cheaper as well. Tigers Claus says, who are we kidding? It's going to be Baleba and Edison, which is perfectly fine. So I'd be shocked if we actually got too many, or Anderson. Yeah, I would say I've kind of 95% written off Anderson. What's the probability we get Tonali? That every day there's like a little story, and it's kind of pushed out there that Manchester United, that it feels like Tonali's on the back burner a little bit. Like, we'd prefer too many, we'd prefer Anderson, but to be fair, Tonali's probably more likely that in terms of these targets. So I know for some reason every single day I see a story that says Manchester United are interested in Anderson, and Manchester United still feel that is they hope they could try and get too many. But does anybody think these are remotely realistic? Like, I've kind of written off Anderson, and as much as I think too many is a good fit, if I had to bet, I think the most likely of these three signings is Tonali. And regardless of where Tonali would prefer to go, um, no Italian team can afford him at this moment in time. And I don't think we could. I don't know what the situation is regarding, like, if Tonali genuinely wants to move to Italy, it's going to be quite difficult for him to engineer that sort of move. And Mark said, if we bring in top class midfielders, show Bruno we have ambitions to win trophies, he'll stay for another couple of years. It could be that with Bruno, maybe a 2 year contract extension, then there's definitely players you can get. The one thing I would say for Bruno Fernandes is I think Manchester United have shown recently that they have bought a mixture of, say, Cunha is a very good quality signing. And I think they've actually been quite astute in the, if you think Aiden Heaven and you think Lamans, they have got some quality there, and they have got some, they have made some good signings. So the fact we could be talking about a couple of expensive signings, there's still room for cheaper signings. Let's say hello to Andy. Thanks for leaving the comment on the video, Andy. I saw it about half an hour ago, just before I was about to go live. So I thought, if you want to get involved in the conversation, Andy, this is a stream where we've been talking about a lot of things. For anybody that missed the start of the stream, I had an update regarding something I saw this morning about FIFA changing the rules about you have to have an academy player. Again, it's not set in stone yet, but they're going to discuss bringing in a new rule which does change the landscape for academy players. It means that clubs have to have an academy player on the pitch at all times. So that would probably have to be gradually brought in because a lot of clubs at the moment, none of them would be doing that. Like no Premier League club has done that so far this season. And I think, but Man United fans, we had a chat about it for 5 minutes. Generally, people are happy with that one. Yeah, I did a video on Hackney, and the more I talked about Hackney, the more it made a lot of sense. Like Hackney, the best player in the Championship, £30 million. He's top 1% of players like progressive passes. There's a lot of positives about him. Development could be sky high as well. So I think Hayden Hackney is £30 million this year, £50 million next year, and then in 2 years' time, it's going to be one of those players where we think, why didn't we buy him when he was 30 million? So yeah, a lot of options out there. Joe Gomez, I feel, is a bit of a no-brainer as well. Like you said, it's a no-brainer. It's literally it's almost too cheap to be done. Gregory's against Belieber and Edison. I think Edison's got one foot in the Atletico Madrid changing room anyway. I think it's just a case of thrashing out the details. I'd be surprised if Edison switches from, if he switches from La Liga to the Premier League at his stage of his career with Manchester United going for an aggressive rebuild. I'm not sure if Edison would be the my best option. A couple of years ago, I think when we were signing Agate, I think Edison was a better option than him. But I don't mind Belieber actually, Gregory. I think Belieber could still be an effective player. I think you just have to see, if it's about potential, I think, rather than form at the moment. So Belieber's like a divisive one, but again, I wouldn't write off any player that's about that sort of age. I think things could definitely change. So if you change Edison for um Fernandez, like I guess you're saying that Mateus Fernandez at West Ham, then I think I'm a bit more on board. Like they're effectively all the same price, aren't they? If West Ham get relegated, then you're looking at 35 million for any of them. So now, if you're looking at Edison, I will just say that I think Gomez has got like a bit more potential. I think Fernandez has got a lot more potential, and I think they're the same price, a bit younger than Edison. It would kind of makes a bit more sense in line with Manchester United trying to build for the future. The question with Bruno Fernandes, I guess, is that it's good building for the future, but we kind of need to show that we're actually, we're not going to be building for 5 years' time. Bruno Fernandes doesn't want to wait 5 years' time to be competing for the Premier League. So we need to be making progression every single year. And maybe we can do enough to convince him. I mean, I know Bayern Munich were linked with Bruno Fernandes, and they probably didn't do their case too much harm last night. If they get through to the final, they're a good shout to lift the trophy again. Gregory's saying United needs a bigger squad of players to survive the expanded. Yeah, that's why I said that I'm not going to say that Man United can sign Tonali plus Anderson because it's not realistic. I don't think you're going to get those sort of players all joining one club either because I think they're going to be first team players expecting first team football. They're going to be on massive contracts, and you have to look at what's going to come. What are you going to get? What are the other pieces going to be? Kobe Mainu will be a first team player. Tonali would be a first team player. Tchouameni would be a first team player. And if you're looking at Hackney, he could try and force his way in, but he would know where he kind of like starts. He would know the situation at the club. So I think you'd also have to look at it. If Edison came with a couple of Premier League players, is Edison going to get a lot of games? I'm not sure if he would in the short term anyway. But again, it's quite interesting how people have got very, very different views on this. No views wrong. I think we all have an idea of what we want to see at the club, and I think we all have like favourite players we'd love to see. I think United are mindful that I don't think they're going to spend as much money as Newcastle want, and it would be interesting that if Manchester United don't meet Newcastle's valuation because I think Tonali is a like a genuine target because too many and Edison sorry and Anderson are difficult to get. I think Tonali might end up being a big target for United, but it might be that if they're not prepared to meet the valuation of Newcastle, like how high can 100 million is high, but how high can not Napoli, how high can Juventus go? Like, could Juventus offer some sort of deal? Like, is there any players at Juventus that potentially Newcastle would be looking at? I don't know, but when you say like Juventus are seriously linked to, I think Agate they have been, but they're linked to players like Xerxes as well. So you feel that when you start going way beyond that price, I don't think they're going to be in the conversation. But no, this is one of the benefits of being a Premier League team is that the money is bigger. So the players that are going to be sold from Premier League teams will be higher, but also it does give us a bit of an advantage. And Mark's saying if you go for like Belieber, Alex Scott plus Gomez plus Stiller, you've got four midfield players, no high salaries, and money to spend on other positions. I mean, if Bruno Fernandes ends up just leaving, which I still think it's unlikely, but you never know. There was maybe more links last season with potential big bids coming. Uh, with Bruno Fernandes, I guess like is he going to do what Harry Kane did and eventually move on? I'd say that yeah, he has managed to win a couple of cups at United. It feels like there's unfinished business that maybe we're kind of got into gear. If you think about it, since January, Manchester United have picked up more points than Arsenal, than Man City, than Liverpool. So could it be that recent success and maybe that hopefully building on that success could convince Bruno Fernandes? Because it feels a little bit like we turned a corner in January. Okay, performances have been not amazing recently, but the results are coming. There's development in some of the players, and I think most of us think that some of the reasons why we lost against Leeds are that Agate had to start because Maina was injured. We had to start without Maguire to suspended, and it felt like we've had disappointing results in games because our squad's just quite threadbare. So if we're looking at bulking up our squad so that yeah, imagine if we're playing a game next season, but our bench options are going to be João Gomez, or they're going to be trying to think, or Hayden Hackney, or other players that have got a lot more experience. So I think we can go from grinding out results to just getting more results as well. So saying City faltering a little, Liverpool did. There's been a bit of a drop off. I think a lot of people are realizing that it's not just about throwing money at the situation, is it? Liverpool threw a lot of money at a title-winning team, and the quality of football's dropped off quite a lot. We're probably going to find out we're going to find out how well we match up with Liverpool in a few days' time. But hopefully, if we get a result in that match, then maybe that would be if we go on a good run to the end of the season, don't lose any games, hopefully beat Brighton on the last day. Maybe that could be enough to like convince other players also that if Michael Carrick stays, maybe convince everyone that we're actually moving in the right direction. Because at the moment, it feels like results are good, but people are starting to like criticize other things. I'm quite happy with getting good results and being third in the league. And I think the expectation for the squad is always going to be that that's probably the ceiling. Like we haven't got a better squad than City. I think over like if we just started with Carrick, I think we could have been close to Arsenal. But I don't think we've got different strengths. I say Bruno's starting to feel like our Harry Kane. If he leaves to win trophies, I won't have anything bad to say about him. I know, but it would be frustrating, wouldn't it? If you get to a certain point, it makes it quite difficult. It reminds me a little bit of Arsenal, where when people like Van Persie left Arsenal, as an Arsenal fan, Arsenal fans that I know would be thinking that they're not very happy. So if you were speaking as an Arsenal fan, you'd be disappointed. And as a Manchester United fan myself, the last thing you want to do is see Bruno leave. It would be a little bit like when Cristiano Ronaldo left, and you just think, right, we've lost one of our best players. We're probably not going to be able to replace Bruno with a like-for-like player. We're going to have to look at our midfield in a different way, I think. And then we're going to have to look at, instead of focusing on defensive solidity, we'd have to look at attacking output as well, because I'd hate our attacking. Like the attacking part of our team has been actually quite good recently. And even though we haven't had yeah, lots and lots of great results, I think what we have done is we always have a goal threat. We're almost always scoring goals. So there's a lot of positivity about the attack part of our team. And it feels like midfield is the one thing that's a bit vulnerable. Yeah, at the moment, that's just Newcastle's valuation. That at this point in time, there's like no one actually knows how much these players are going to cost. I think the order might be right. I think that too many can't cost too much more than 70 because his salary is so high. I do think Anderson might end up costing the most. I think that if Gordon costs like 80, which I think is absolutely ridiculous as well, then maybe I don't know, it might be. But if you're going to guess, just a quick question then for like people that just tune in. If you're going to guess how much Tonali eventually goes for if he leaves Newcastle, how much is it? Like Newcastle won 100 million euros. Do they get that? Do they get close to that? that I think if Manchester United are prepared to pay about 50 to 60 for Baleba, I can't imagine like another 30 or like 20 to 30 pounds on top of that for Tonali. So I don't think we sign anybody for that sort of price. I'd imagine like 70 to 80 would be the very maximum. And I would be surprised if we went like 80-ish, to be honest. I think we'd look at it and say, well, there's actually better deals. And then maybe Newcastle either have to, like, Newcastle can't offer like Tonali to Juventus for close to that sort of money. So I think Cunha is expected to be back, Mark. I think Cunha and Dorgu are expected to be back in the matchday squad. Actually, Dorgu was in the matchday squad, wasn't he, on Monday, but didn't play. So I think they're expecting them to be available. Hopefully, Cunha can start in that match. I think that he was obviously a key player in the first game against Liverpool. Sorry, saying you think that we'd spend about 75 plus add-ons. It could be something like that, couldn't it? If you've got some long-term add-ons that are linked to, I suppose, like maybe they're going to be some team metrics, some individual metrics. I think when you're looking at attacking players, you can have it with goals and assists. And actually, a bit of news which is positive, but it's also hits Man United financially is that Sesko's triggered, I think, more add-ons because he's scored goals. So I'm guessing Rasmus maybe didn't trigger the add-ons that he had, but yeah. Cody says, I think the maximum's, you think it's 80 million pounds, but if we offer, say, 60 plus 10, it could, I'm just trying to think, how much did Isak actually go for? And how much who else did they sell? Did, uh, did Newcastle sell anybody else apart from Isak? I'm trying to think now. Mine's gone a bit blank. But in terms of player sales, that was probably the big one. And I don't know how much they got for Isak. They did say 150 as a price to start with. So I'm just wondering how much lower than 150 did Isak actually go for? And if Newcastle say 100 million, does it mean actually 80 million? Like, are they looking at that sort of price? But so I think if they say 80, so yeah, Isak was quoted 150. I just wondered how much he actually went for. So welcome, Clive. If you're a Liverpool fan, Clive, do you have the information of how much was the actual transfer fee? Because that would be quite interesting. Good morning to my friend in the USA. Good morning, Jeff. Good to see you. Good to hear from you this morning. So he actually cost 125 million. So if you're looking at, I suppose like 25, but what's that? One percentage wise, about 18% reduction. So I think if you're looking at maybe like 20% reduction from that one, I think I think you might be like looking about 80-ish. Like I think 80-ish should be 80 million euros, which is how much? What 60 something million? I think if you're looking at the sort of price we paid for maybe in Buemo might be the sort of price to get Tonali done. So if you're looking at that sort of deal, I think as a percentage wise, roughly like, and Buemo was what, 65 plus add-ons. I think something like that might be a Tonali price. So I think it's achievable. I think that Newcastle are always going to set their stall out and put a big price on it, but I don't think they're going to achieve those prices. I don't think Anderson's going to go for 125 either. The same way that Mark Gahey didn't go for the price they thought it was going to go for. So I would just ignore quoted prices and just assume that it'll be a bit lower than that one. So if you're saying 85 million euros, because that's the price quoted for 100 million is in euros, then I think if you're looking at 85 million euros, 80 million euros, which could be, like I said, about an Embuemo type price, that sort of amount. So I mean, if we don't buy him, I don't think anyone else is actually looking at Tonali. I don't believe Arsenal's actually looking at trying to spend that much on a midfield either. So yeah, tricky regarding that one. The match for Liverpool is a 1:30, sorry, 3:30 kickoff. So I guess 3:30. Then the match finishes what, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30. We could potentially do a calling show late. So we will do a match reaction after the match, which could go for maybe like an hour and a half. Potentially, we might be able to do a late night calling show on the Sunday then, because we'd have a little gap. So obviously, if we're doing the match and a match reaction, and then I'll want some food, so could be doing that as well. Alex says, I get tonight is a decent Premier League player, and one of the only one not excited by his arrival. So, how much? Just a genuine question. So, what I might do is I'll put a poll in the chat just to gauge opinion. How much do you think Tonali? Like, what's the best deal we could get for Tonali? Like, or a sensible price. Do you think it's going to be about £80 million? Like, should we put a price point and there go like should? Because I want to say, should we sign Tonali and put a price? But I don't want to go with Newcastle's valuation because I think that's a little bit too high. So I don't think 100 million would be the price. But do you think 80, like 80 million possibly? Just let me know what you think is a sensible price. I'll add it to the end of the question. So should United sign Tonali? So I put 80 million maybe. Where's the bet says I sense Tonali will go for 95 million. Tricky, yeah. So I'll put over 80 million then as so should United sign Tonali for over 80 million if that's what it costs? It's tricky, isn't it? It's like quite tricky. So I'll put 80 million just to gauge people's opinions of that price because I don't know how much it's going to cost 100%. So should United sign Tonali for 80 million? Yes, no for that one. It's difficult to make a judgment call, isn't it? If we don't get him, then there's other options. I think he's definitely one to consider because it looks a little bit. Yeah, it's difficult. I know you're talking about specifying the price as well, but the difficulty is going to be that the price can be one thing, but no one knows exactly how much it's going to cost. So this is just one to get an opinion. So say you're looking at 25, say 85 million pounds, based in the UK. But the most price, if I put prices, they're going to generally be in the chat live stream. They're going to be in pounds. So if you're looking at Tonali, Solly says 85 million pounds as a starting. It might get it down a little bit. So I would say for United, I think you got to go. I think it's going to be like 70 plus add-ons as maybe. So I think you're not far away, Alex. But I don't think Newcastle would see that as a enough money for one of their better players. So I think the reason why Newcastle are selling is because they want to try and they need the money to try and invest in their team a little bit. So I think if we offer if there's a low price on Tonali, I think Newcastle may as well keep him and they'll sell Gordon. So yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Clive says he's a great player. The same situation as Wharton. Do you think it's the same situation as Wharton? Whereas Wharton apparently has an agreement to be allowed to leave Crystal Palace. So the fact that Wharton has kind of got this agreement to leave, I think the price that they're putting on him is about 60, 65 million. So for Adam Wharton, he might be 60, 65 million. I think with that sort of price in mind, I think it makes it difficult for Manchester United to go like too much higher. That yeah, I think it could be a bit higher, but I don't think it could be loads. Alex says he wants out of Newcastle. Yeah, he wants to leave Newcastle. It's tricky, isn't it? Cody says United will walk away if it's over 70 million. Interestingly, with this, then I think one thing Manchester United have said is they have a valuation on every player. And you're right, Cody. If they think the price is too high, they won't go for him. I wonder what they value. I wonder what Manchester United's valuation of Tonali is. We know for Baleba, it's like about probably about 60. For Alex Scott, it's maybe slightly lower. And I think other players we know how much they're going to cost, the cheaper options. And I think that there's a few options on the table that feel like genuine no-brainers. But if you're looking at this, do you think 70 plus, well, 70 plus add-ons? It feels like it's close. Like it feels pretty tricky. Jeff saying Tonali more of an 8 than a 6 for him. Chris says, what has he shown people to think he's good enough at Manchester United? So interestingly, with like Tonali, I'll say this: like reporting on the news and discussing the stories out there. There's always links to Tonali. There's a lot of links with other midfield players as well. I would say when I watch Newcastle, I don't know. Bruno Guimaraes is generally the most important player for them. But I think with Newcastle, if you took Tonali out of the team, and replaced him with another player. I think Newcastle are probably largely the same amount of still similar level of effectiveness. I think it's difficult though because I think if you put Tonali in our team instead of Agate, we're much better. I think if you because you got good midfield players already at Newcastle, they got quite a good setup. I think if you take Tonali out of the team, they can replace him easily. But no, I think Tonali would be an upgrade for us. But I guess also is going to be there's going to be a lot of expectation, is there? Like the Tonali you see at Newcastle, can he step it up and improve? Because I think that's the expectation. We saw a really good player in Brentford and Mbeumo. He looked really good at the start of the season, but Mbeumo struggled a little bit. And if you're looking at Cunha, I think Cunha took a bit of time, but is now levels better than he was. He's improved a lot over the season, and I wonder whether Tonali, like for Tonali to be a good signing, he has to then hit a higher level for Manchester United and he has to do it in the Champions League for us. Hopefully, that's kind of where you want his experience, and we have to see. But I'm kind of 50-50. Genghis says Tonali's average doesn't excel in any areas. I would just say it does feel a little bit like with Newcastle that they did play. If you were watching Newcastle this season, Newcastle were a better team against PSG. They should have beaten PSG. They actually were controlling that game. I think it might have ended in a draw, but I would say that they're a good team on occasions. Maybe with Tonali, I think Tonali is more inconsistent than anything like that. So I think you look at it and say a bit inconsistent with Tonali, but again, Newcastle quite inconsistent this season. He's on a very big contract, but he wants to leave, doesn't he? That's the problem that Newcastle have got. And I think Newcastle just, to be honest, I think the situation at Newcastle is there's a certain price, and if they get that, they're looking at who they can buy instead of that one. If we can only, okay, I do like this question, so I'll just go for this one. If I could only acquire one expensive midfielder and two reasonable midfielders, then what is my order of preference for the expensive ones? So I would say my my order of preference. This is kind of tricky actually. I think if you're looking at players, what they've achieved, if I could buy one player, and I'm making an assumption here, I don't know about too many status, and I, I'd be I'd be finding it difficult to not sign too many. Like too many has been a top quality player for Real Madrid. He's probably the closest out there that could maybe do some of the things that Casemiro did, and I think, but obviously more defensive version. But no, too many would be it's got a level of experience that Anderson's yet to get. So I would say I think too many maybe for that one. I think Anderson's really good, but I don't know. I think that Anderson's going to cost similar to too many when you consider salary. Too many's 26. I think Manchester United need some leadership in the team with Casemiro going. So I'd probably favour too many at the moment. So that's my choice. Other options are available. I think my second choice would be Anderson, and my third choice would be Tonali. So in terms of this, although Tonali is kind of the discussion point today, I feel Tonali is more achievable from a Manchester United perspective, but I don't think it's the best option. I think it's the third best option that we're talking about today. Debasa says you favour in getting too many for that price. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that one. So I'll go for so D Hexian says definitely go for too many, and then you've got Alex Scott, Gomez, Stiller. Yeah, I don't mind getting Hayden Hackney. I think he's a good player for the future as well, and also there's no doubt he could do something next season. Alex Scott, I would say I think Alex Scott is more of a player we've been linked to recently, but no, I think if we've got too many, it suddenly provides a platform on our team to build from, which is quite exciting. I think if you said to Bruno Fernandes, we're going to buy too many, and then we're going to buy a good option to play alongside him, or maybe with Mainu, or kind of interact with the two in different games. I think maybe that'd be Bruno Fernandes thinking actually another couple of years and we can win stuff. Yeah, again, I don't watch loads of Newcastle, but I think Newcastle are inconsistent. So I agree with Chris. Yeah, they're inconsistent. I could get some feedback from Newcastle fans and then let you know what they think regarding Tonali. But all I know is that from speaking about a month ago to Newcastle fans, that they're not too bothered if Tonali leaves, which for me doesn't make me think, great, we're getting a brilliant player. But if Bruno Guimaraes left, they'd be broken. So it makes me think that no, Tonali's good, but he's not going to be he can still improve, but I don't think he's going to be the best possible signing we could get. What I saw this comment saying that someone put in a brilliant comment as well. They're saying too many first, Anderson second, and you wouldn't consider Tonali. So I would say I think United are considering well, they are considering Tonali. I would be looking at too many first, Anderson second as well. But again, I think there's a lot of options out there. I would question, maybe one of the things I would question is, does Tonali really want to join Manchester United? Or does he just want to get out of Newcastle? Like, if you want to leave Newcastle, that's one thing. But are you coming to Manchester United because you want to come to Manchester United? It's, yeah, a difficult one, isn't it? I would say too many salaries with yeah, too many will pretty much get Casemiro's salary. So don't expect too many to leave a 300k contract at Madrid and come for like half the amount here. He's going to be looking at getting the same sort of money. And again, we'll probably actually how much we'll probably be paying Casemiro an absolute fortune next season with the Champions League bonus kicking in. So D Hexian said. So tonight was to Arsenal. I think I don't know. Maybe. D Hexian said we'll probably end up with too many and Belieber, which to be honest, I don't mind that. I think Belieber could surprise people next season. That's what I'm going to say. I think that the fact that Belieber's been written off, I think is a like, because of his age, I think it's a bit premature. Like players can have ups and downs at that sort of stage. Can you imagine? Like discussing Kerry Maynard at the start of the season, a lot of fans were writing him off. So I'm not going to write off anybody. Genghis says tonight's not a bad player, but not what we need. Yeah, no, that's fair play, Genghis. He's not top of my list, is he? Tim, top of maybe on Funchu's list, quite interesting. So you've got Belieber as one of your top three. So you've got too many Alex Scott and Belieber. I don't mind actually that, to be honest. I'm fairly relaxed about whether we sign Belieber or not. I think it's a likely signing. Alex Scott, I'm kind of intrigued by this one. My biggest guess is going to be if I had to predict and put money on it, I'd say too many signs a new contract. But um, sometimes you get surprising, but you absolutely never know, do you? You go for Wharton instead of Tonali. So it looks like a lot of people. Yeah, Alex Scott seems to be getting a bit more. When you look at, do you remember last season when we got Sesko? Suddenly there was a massive momentum towards um Belieber, and what we've seen recently, definitely over the last couple of months, a big momentum shift towards maybe Alex Scott and probably also Fernandez at. I think Fernandez at so West Ham. Like, I think they're the two names that have definitely been pushed forward by fans. I don't know whether Manchester United are genuinely looking at maybe Fernandez on the radar, but I think Paris Saint-Germain are sort of circling. So if West Ham get relegated, it could be bad times for West Ham fans. Yeah. Funshi says I don't want any player near that price. Say no English. Well, Tonali's Italian, but Italy doesn't even qualify for the World Cup, so that's not really an endorsement at the moment, is it? I think you've got to say, Funchu, that Premier League players that suit the Premier League is a thing. But I don't think it should be the total deciding factor. All it tells you really is that Anderson and other players suit the Premier League. Um, yeah, Malps. I think there feels like a sad area sort of thing of inevitability about it, doesn't it? I remember when I heard that Man City wanted Semenyo. Um, I felt a bit sad because you think, well, that's going to happen. So I think with this one, I'll just say I've emotionally prepared for it anyway. So I'm expecting Man City to sign Anderson. So it'll be a disappointment. But to be honest, if I was talking about thinking we're going to sign him, I'd be a bit delusional at this point. So let's say with the baggage Tonali has, are we not thinking of Tonali as a backup option in case of emergency? I think so. That's Gregory. I think that's what I said early on in the stream that I think if you look at where the news story is going, Manchester United favour Anderson and favour too many, like everybody in the chat. So Manchester United have the same view as us in terms of the best targets out there. The question is going to be if they both, for different reasons, are not available, we have to look at another option. And at the moment, Manchester United's third option seems to be Tonali. And until other news comes out of other potential options, then I think that's what it might be likely because of that. So I just think that if you're looking at the best options available, I think Man United know what the best options are available. These are the two best options. So if we're looking at all the options potentially on the table, these are the two that I would put at the top. Unfortunately, I think if I was going to make a list of probable signings, then Tonali is above both of those, and I think Belieber might be even one of the top ones on the list. So I'm just at the moment. I read a story about 2 weeks ago now, about 10 days ago, that United would make an offer for Alex Scott. I just don't see. I don't see anything like in the news apart from that one as well. So you like Anderson as a player? No, he's not worth 125. Like it's not worth that much money. It's like anything. I don't think it's necessarily to do with where he plays from either or his country. I think it's just I don't know. I don't know why they think they can get him for that sort of money. Welcome Randy to the chat. Good to see you, Randy. I say these are rough prices, aren't they? Too many Anderson, Hackney, 205 million. And so we spent 204 on three attackers last season. So do you remember when we had a conversation about a year ago and it was Belieber plus Wharton and everybody thought they would cost about £80 million each? And that was kind of deemed as being too expensive. I think this is like, if you think about it, too many salary is pretty much Casemiro's salary. Anderson plus Hackney salary would be definitely less than Sancho's combined. So I think that's achievable, isn't it? That would be £200 million spent. But again, Hackney's quite a cheap option. I think Hackney's could be slightly cheaper. I think possibly you could get too many for. If you look at, I think this price is in euros, isn't it? So again, Anderson, Forest aren't going to get relegated, are they? So he's going to be quite expensive. If I was Elliot Anderson, I'd 100% go to a proper football team like Manchester United, Lumen, rather than go to Man City. I'd want to play in front of fans rather than like about three people. So if I was looking to move to a club, I'd go to a proper club like Manchester United. Hopefully that answers your question. But I am potentially a little bit biased just to put that out there. So not bothered about how too many adapts to the Premier League. Too many's been really good against English teams in Europe, and if you're looking at how he competes against teams, I'm not too considered. So not obviously, I think it might take a little bit in some games, but too many's such a good player. There's some players we just think that he can't be that. He's not going to be that good for years in the Champions League and domestically and struggle against teams in the Premier League. I think he's that top quality player. If you remember, Agate was getting benched by Paris Saint-Germain in Europe. He couldn't get into Paris Saint-Germain's team in Europe. I know they got a good team, but this is a couple of years ago, and he couldn't get into the team. Whereas too many gets into Real Madrid's team. They've lifted the Champions League enough times, haven't they? So I'm not concerned. He's been a good player against English teams in the that league. Jim says you're scared that United's not going to sell Agate. No, Jim, Agate wants to leave. Like Agate's gone. Like there's no way Agate stays. So don't be worried about Agate staying. He wants to leave. Manchester United want to sell him. I think there was like some stories recently saying Agate, not that it's a done deal, but Agate's gone. Like Agate doesn't want to be at Manchester United. He's not going to be at the club for much longer. So Agate will be not part of the plans. Yeah, one thing that's the one thing that makes me think like Has has Mourinho actually confirmed as manager of I was going to say, has it been confirmed that Mourinho's manager of Real Madrid? Like, has that been confirmed? Because if it has been confirmed, and you want a reason why too many would stay at Real Madrid, I think that might be potentially that. Randy wants Belieber. I said I'm open-minded about Belieber. I don't think Belieber's going to be as bad as people think. That people that think that Beliebers would be bad, I think it's really difficult to predict how Belieber would do it in another season. It is tricky, isn't it? It's like Angela Stiller. I have no idea how he would do if he joined Manchester United. Edison, I don't know how he'd work out if he joined Manchester United. And Tabasa says it's too expensive. We don't really know the price. I think all you can say is that if Manchester United signed a few players, you can only judge. I said last summer, you can only judge in the future, can't you, whether these have been good signings. So, like, Lamans was a good signing, Cunha was a good signing. I think Benjamin Sesko was a good signing considering the market. And I think Mbeumo was actually a decent signing, largely considering what we had in our team as well. And maybe he's a bit dropped off a little bit this season. But I think we're making actually decent signings. And welcome, Borussia. I don't know if I've seen your channel in the chat before, but thanks for getting involved. So this might be left field, but you're saying that Jack Clark at Ipswich Town got a bit of a Berbatov touch, which is very high praise indeed, and says way better than yeah. I think if he's better than Garnacho, that's good. I think he's got to have more output than Anthony as well, and I guess he's going to be a lot cheaper deal than getting Rashford back. But no, I don't know too much about the player, but I can maybe look into that if I see some stories. But no, I think Man United are looking at if it comes to Championship players, I think Hackney might be the guy they go for as well. I think sometimes people post comments. YouTube does sometimes change your comments, so I don't know what it puts if you're trying to put too many and you get it wrong. Because sometimes it puts symbols up. I don't know why YouTube does this as well. Funch is that if Carrick stays as a coach, players like Tonali, Stiller, and Scott will really be appreciated because of their deep line playmaking, just like him at the time. It could be that maybe there's. I think United are looking beyond who's in charge and picking players for the team. But no, I appreciate that point that it might depend on who's in charge. Like Hayden Hackney was talked about this morning by myself and a couple of journalists as being a good option and maybe an option if Carrick stays. But I think he's a good option anyway. Like as people pointed out, good range of passing, one of the best in the championship. I think it's a good option regardless of this one. I'm saying Anderson not on Rodri level pre-injury. I think Anderson's quite young, so I think Anderson is one that you have to probably bear in mind that the price is probably representative of potential value in the future. So that Nottingham Forest did well buying the player for 35 million, and I think that's why Man United should be looking at. We should be looking at someone like Gomez, someone like Hackney for like 30, 35 million, and then you're looking at getting good value signings in. But you have to do that now, don't you? I think that kind of like the time to sign Tonali would have been when he joined Newcastle. The time to get Anderson might have been when he joined Nottingham Forest. So I think you have to look at it and say that if you're going to sign a player that's like for even Belieber, no one knows what Belieber's going to be in 3 years' time. Like there's potentially a high ceiling for all these targets. And at the time, remember a year ago, there was a lot of people that looked at Gyökeres and looked at Sesko, and it was kind of 50-50 about which player we should get. And no one knew exactly how they were going to work out. People thought, would Sesko be the next Rasmus? Is Gyökeres going to be a guaranteed like fix, a guaranteed improvement because he played? So no one knows a lot about how these players are going to be. I just saw this. Which player reminds you of Zidane? Because Zidane for me is like the perfect combination of ability, physicality. It's almost like the complete midfielder. So if you find a player that looks like Zidane or reminds you of Zidane, I think he's a top. So you're talking about Anderson. I mean, Zidane had like a Berbatov touch with like Roy Keane's physicality. He was there's not many players I think are close to Zidane in terms of ability. And I think that today's generation will probably say Zidane can't run enough, but no, he was a really top player. You think he's a more withdrawn Zidane? Okay, that's an interesting comparison. So yeah, no, I think when you start talking about 100 million and the price we're talking about, people are demanding perfection because it seems like it's such a high transfer fee. And I get that. If you're going to spend a huge amount of money, it feels like, right, is this going to be a Cristiano Ronaldo impact? Is this going to be so the impact Bruno had? But I think unfortunately what's happened is I think the transfer market has gone crazy. So if you look at the top end, they've gone really, really, no, really tricky. Yeah, no worries, retro. No worries. Sometimes there's a couple of people that got because the YouTube handle's displayed instead of your name. Sometimes people join and the YouTube handle is incredibly long letters. But yeah, we got the Stockport Seedorf. Yeah, if we got Clarence Seedorf plus Zidane, then I'm trying to think what other pieces we need. Then maybe we need like a Maldini in defence. Maybe Zidane would be perfect. We probably need like a Roy Keane or someone that's going to be making sure like maybe with Bruno's influence in attack, we could do as sort of like a leader, like a natural leader in midfield. That's something that I think we kind of do need as a bit. Do people see leadership qualities from these players? Like if you're looking at Anderson, you're looking at Tchouameni, possibly Tonali. I think leadership is something we need. I think you probably argue with Newcastle that Bruno Guimaraes is their leader, isn't he? So that are we going to see? How are we going to see Tonali fit into the team if we did buy him? Is one like so I don't think Believer's going to come as a leader. Maybe Anderson would be. I think Anderson might be a potential leader as well. So I think unfortunately I think he's a very good signing for Manchester City. Yeah, it's tricky. It is genuinely difficult because I think the difference between top quality players and world class players is the gap's closing. I don't think there's loads and loads of standout players. There's lots of very, very good players. That's why I think that's why it's actually I'm a bit relaxed in the transfer window because if we don't get Anderson, I don't think Anderson is completely levels above any other player, and I don't think Tonali's levels above any other player. And I think if you spend 50, 60 million, you can probably get an extra player, and you won't notice the difference. You won't notice the difference in the quality. So I've got at the moment, based on the interestingly, the poll's running at 87, sorry, at 57% positive that you would be going for, say, you would buy Tonali at this sort of price. So most people are actually favouring paying 80 million for Tonali, which is, I suppose, at this point in time, I think most of us are thinking, make sure you get some midfield player signed because we don't want to be. Do you know what the worst case scenario is? Like for me, the worst case scenario is if Manchester United take a long time and we see other players move clubs. If we see Wharton go to Liverpool, we see Enzo go to City, or we see other teams interested, then I don't want to be in a situation where Manchester United end up going right. Here's 100, or just having to overpay to get Tonali. If they genuinely want Tonali, they kind of need to find out what's happened with Tchouaméni pretty quickly. And if they do that, then yeah, yeah. I'd agree with this comment, Mops. Arsenal are in the mix, but they need to keep those players together. They need to make sure they don't sell. Like if they lose Saliba or they lose some of the key pieces of their defense, which could happen. I mean, Real Madrid might be sniffing around some of their players as well. It could happen that teams that haven't done so well recently in the Championship, sorry, in the Champions League, might be looking at Arsenal as now, Arsenal have they've got to try and win things this season. I think because if they don't, potentially they might lose some players, so they might have a difficulty in keeping them. Like 5 years without a trophy is a long time. I mean, they're still kind of 50-50 for the Premier League, aren't they? They're still probably what's the chance of the Champions League? I mean, they could be getting to a final. We'll see tonight what they're made of. But no, you get the feeling if Arsenal win no trophies this season, potentially some players might be looking to leave, particularly players that have been there 4 or 5 years with zero trophies. They might start looking at different clubs, and it might be if Arsenal lose a couple of key players, they kind of drop down, don't they? They'll drop down below Liverpool and City quite quickly, and Manchester United will not be far behind. So if they keep everyone together, they can, but I think they might not if they lose these two competitions. Big up, Danny. Good to see you. Yeah, everybody's going to be after midfielders this summer, doesn't it? It seems ridiculous, isn't it? And so look at Florian Wirtz. He's a good player on his day, but should be 65, 70, not 117. This is my point, though. If a player's going to cost like 65, 70, 80 million pounds, then paying extra, you don't get a better player. There's literally um, yeah. Say Buwadi has a higher ceiling, for example, than Anderson. Honestly, Buwadi looked really good at 17, but it's actually difficult it's difficult to predict, isn't it? I've said this myself, Genghis, that I've been a big fan of what I've seen from Buwadi, but it's genuinely difficult to predict how well he's going to do. Like Buwadi, for me, if I was if you look at him, like this is kind of what the game that put him on the map, isn't it? He played against Real Madrid. They won that game. Lille won 1-0, didn't they? About 18 months ago. Was it 2 years ago? It could have even been longer, actually. Was it 3 years ago? But they won that game against Real Madrid. Buwadi was like one of the best player on the pitch. Really, really good. And but again, it depends what's best for Buwadi at this stage in his career. That is he going to be jumping to the Premier League, or is he going to be staying where he is? It's just generally difficult to say. I'd say Casemiro's got more goals than Saka, Rice, Garnacho. I mean, Rice isn't a goal scorer. Casemiro does play further forward, but I think Garnacho is the worst player. Mo Salah just doesn't get in the team, does he? But it is funny that Casemiro has been maybe one of our best players recently. I would say, from an Arsenal perspective, I've been genuinely disappointed by Saka over the last few years. He's not getting a lot. He's not scoring a lot of goals. His numbers are rubbish compared with Rashford's, put it that way. But he gets a lot more praise for some reason, and he's achieved a lot less than Rashford has in his career as well. So I think Saka is a problem. I think Martinelli's average. I think most of Arsenal's attacking players are disappointing, to be honest. So I think Arsenal got a good defence, but when you look at their attack, Gyökeres is worse than Sesko. I think Cunha is better than Martinelli. Maybe we haven't got a player on the actually. Mbeumo is probably better than Saka over the season as well with goals. I think they got Declan Rice though, who's a good player. I think if we fix our midfield, we potentially got a better team than Arsenal. I mean, we did beat Arsenal last time we played them, so we don't have to worry. I don't think we're levels behind. Is Wirtz worth 100 million? No, of course he's not. I think once you go beyond like a certain price, you're not going to get anything extra, do you? I think Wirtz will be a better player next season, but I don't think he's a game changer I don't think he transforms your team to win the Premier League title. I think he's good, but yeah, Buwadi would be maybe like 30 to 40 million, I believe. I think Um, so, Retro, I agree with this comment unless Arsenal win the Premier League this season. If Arsenal win the Premier League this season, obviously we can't do that. But if Arsenal mess up this season, I think potentially we might be in a better position in a couple of years' time. Maybe next season will be 50-50. I honestly think Arsenal might lose some players, 5 years without a trophy, or however long it's been. I don't think you keep everybody happy when you can't win any sort of trophies, and that might be the issue Arsenal have got. But guys, I'm going to have to end the stream quickly today. I'll say quickly; it's been like an hour and a half. But I'll go for the poll, get the result, and if anybody's new, if you're actually new to the channel today, can you just like let us know in the chat so we can just say welcome to the channel? We are pushing towards trying to get 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. If we can get 800 before the Liverpool game, that's kind of a little target to try and aim for as well. I'm not going to talk about players I can't stand. So, now looking at this, I've asked the poll: should Manchester United sign slowly as 10 hours? Yeah, no, I probably have to. I actually have to take a delivery order in a second. So I'm looking at the poll, and the question was going to be, as a guess, how much should Tonali cost? So should United sign Tonali for 80 million pounds? And it was actually quite close, 55-45. So it's kind of 50-50 on getting close to meeting Newcastle's valuation. So about 50-50. Interestingly, I think more people in the chat would be a bit negative towards spending that sort of money on Tonali, but overall, people voting have gone. They think it's a good deal. but it's actually reasonably close, isn't it? So it's not, it's not far off. The money is quite close. I think so, Mark. I think so. Maybe a bit of scouting there as well, on particular certain midfielders that might be linked to Manchester United. Any final comments before we wrap up? So, um, but for people that want to join the socials, I've got the socials pinned as well for the Discord group, which we're getting people watching. Yeah, Lamans is the bargain of the season, I think, and the bargain of last season was Aiden Heaven, 100%. Bargain of the century so far is Aiden Heaven, and yeah, hopefully we can do more of those sort of deals. I don't think we're going to get any bargains this summer though, because it feels like every single target we talk about is pretty well known and it's going to be incredibly expensive. So I don't think we're going to get I don't think we're going to get any secret target that we don't know about that's going to be a good option or a cheap price. But who knows? You never know. Sometimes they surprise us, but I think it's going to be unlikely. But there should be hopefully a live stream tonight. I'm not sure exactly when it'll be because it depends on if there's some good news stories out before the Champions League match, I could do a short stream then, but I'm not sure. If you're in the Discord group and you want to share information you see, please do that as well. And I think there's good bargain deals. There is good bargain deals to be had. It just depends for United. I think we've been tempted by Tonali for some reason, but I think Manchester United. It's effectively like we've walked past the Ferrari dealership. We've seen like the shiny toys we can't afford or that don't want us, and then we're kind of like walking on and going, well, maybe we'll just buy something anyway. So I think that if we're not going to buy Anderson or too many, I think we should have a rethink about what's our top target and maybe look for another. I mean, too many, just decide if you're going to stay or not, and then we can move on with our lives. But thanks everybody for watching. Hoping to do an early live stream tonight and maybe 7 p.m., but it depends on news. And if I can't find any news before then, maybe there's going to be something else. Skulls would be unsellable. Like we wouldn't accept anything for him at all, would we? He'd be too good, too good. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and please share with people you know as well. Share with some mutual football fans. And yeah, Wes Brown and like John O'Shea would be like 50 million as like a squad player. So, but guys, thanks for watching. Possibly 7 p.m., maybe later, depending on news and what's happening. But I'll try and dodge the Champions League game if possible, but I'll see what's out there. Until then, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next live stream.